Have you ever stopped to think, really think, about what holds a nation together? What sets its rules, its core identity, its dreams?
It's a fundamental question, isn't it?
Exactly. And today, we're diving deep into that very blueprint for one of the world's biggest democracies, the Constitution of India. We've got this pretty substantial pile of sources here covering its history, its structure, its ideals.
Right. And our mission really is to pull out the key insights from all this material. We want to help you understand not just what this huge constitution is, but, why it matters so much and the incredible journey behind it. It's quite a story.
Okay, let's get into it then. Prepare yourself for some, I think, pretty surprising details and a really profound look at the foundations of this nation. So as we start digging into this foundational document for India, how do our sources really define a constitution in the simplest terms? And, well, what jumps out right away as maybe unique about India's version?
Well, fundamentally, a constitution is the supreme law, right?
Right.
The rule book for how a state is governed. It sets out the government's powers, but also, crucially, the people's rights and duties.
Okay.
But with India, what's really striking, is that the framers didn't just copy-paste. They meticulously crafted something for India's specific complex situation. They were trying to address the diversity, prevent the kinds of divisions they'd just lived through. It feels very deliberate.
That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, creating it wasn't quick. Our sources mentioned the British cabinet mission in 1946. That seems to be the starting point. How did that work?
Yeah, the cabinet mission sort of laid the groundwork. Its proposals led to setting up the Constituent Assembly and the members. They were elected by the provincial legislative assemblies. So basically, representatives from all over British India got tasked with, well, building the legal framework for a free nation.
And some really big names were involved. Dr. Rajendra Prasad as chairman of the assembly, and maybe the most famous, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar heading the drafting committee. How important were they?
Oh, absolutely pivotal. Dr. Ambedkar especially. He's often called the chief architect of the Constitution. His legal expertise and his deep commitment to social justice were just immense.
Right.
The assembly itself started with 385 members, representing all sorts of groups, parties, minorities, you name it. Then after partition, that number went down to 308.
Still a lot of people.
A huge number. And the effort involved.
Wow.
Wow. It wasn't just dashed off. It took almost 3 years. The sources say 2 years, 11 months, and 17 days.
Incredibly specific. 2 years, 11 months.
And 17 days, yeah. It really tells you something about the level of debate, the sheer work involved in getting consensus from so many different viewpoints. They finally enacted and adopted it on November 26, 1949.
Okay, November 26, 1949. Adopted.
Right.
But, and this is where I find it really interesting, why did it only actually come into force on January 26, 1950? That gap.
Yeah.
There has to be a reason.
Yes. That day is packed with historical meaning. It ties right back into the independence struggle. See, there was this major session of the Indian National Congress back on December 31st, 1929, in Lahore.
Okay.
And at that session, under Jawaharlal Nehru, they declared Purna Swaraj, complete independence, as their goal, which was, a huge statement back then.
Right. Still under British rule.
Exactly. And they also decided that January 26th should be observed everywhere as Purna Swaraj Day, Independence Day, essentially. They kept observing it every year. So choosing January 26, 1950 to bring the Constitution into force was a powerful symbolic act. It connected the dream of freedom with the reality of the new republic.
Wow. Okay. That's a really potent connection. Deliberate symbolism. And speaking of scale, another thing the sources point out is just how big this document is. It's written, obviously, but 395 articles, 12 schedules. What does that massive size tell us? It's the longest in the world, right?
It is, yes. The lengthiest written constitution globally. And it's not just long for the sake of it. It really reflects the framers' ambition to be incredibly thorough. They were dealing with immense diversity, different communities, languages, religions, social hierarchies.
So they tried to cover everything.
Pretty much. They included provisions for almost every aspect of governance, trying to anticipate challenges, protect minorities, ensure stability. It suggests a desire to leave very little ambiguous to provide a really detailed roadmap for this new complex nation.
Okay, so if the making of it was the birth, our sources kind of frame the preamble as its soul, its essence. What does that opening statement tell us about India's core identity?
The preamble is like the introduction, yeah. Or maybe the philosophical heart. It declares India as a sovereign, socialist, secular, and democratic republic. It lays out the big goals, the basic ideals the nation committed itself to.
Right. And there's an interesting evolution there. The sources mention that originally it just said sovereign democratic republic. The words socialist and secular, they were added later. By the 42nd Amendment in 1976, why add those specifically?
That's a really important point. That amendment, the 42nd, it wasn't just tweaking words. It was a major statement about India's direction, post-independence. Adding socialists formally declared a commitment to, social and economic justice, reducing inequality, looking after the vulnerable sections of society.
Okay.
And adding secular made explicit the state's commitment to religious neutrality and equality,
Sure.
treating all religions the same. It was basically codifying values that many felt were already there, but making them absolutely clear in the foundational text.
Makes sense, making it explicit. So beyond those big defining words, sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, republic, the preamble also spells out some other core ideals, right?
It does. It breaks them down. First, you've got justice. And not just legal justice, but social, economic, and political justice. The idea is fairness for everyone, equality before the law, no one denied their due.
Okay, justice. What else?
Then liberty. Liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship. This connects directly to the fundamental rights. We'll probably talk about freedom to move, practice religion, think, speak, within limits, of course, but the freedom is key.
Right, freedom.
Next, equality, specifically equality of status and opportunity, meaning everyone's equal in the eyes of the law, and the state can't discriminate based on things like gender, caste, religion, where you were born, social status, trying to create a level playing field.
Crucial in a society with historical inequalities.
Absolutely. And finally, fraternity. This is about assuring the dignity of every individual, but also the unity of the nation. It's promoting a sense of brotherhood, trying to break down social barriers between different communities. Unity and diversity, essentially.
Justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. Those sound like the bedrock. And these ideals, especially justice and equality, they must have shaped the actual nature of the Indian state itself. How do they translate into those 5 big labels? Sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, and republican.
Exactly. They flow directly into those definitions. Let's take them one by one. First, sovereign. Post-colonialism, this was non-negotiable. India is independent, internally, externally, free to make its own policies, its own destiny, no foreign control. Even being in the Commonwealth, the sources note, doesn't compromise that sovereignty.
Right, complete self-governance.
Then, socialist. As we touched on, this aims to reduce income inequality, bridge the gap between rich and poor, protect the weaker sections. It's more about social welfare and equitable development than, say, state ownership of everything.
And our sources actually list some concrete examples of how this socialist ideal plays out in practice. What kind of things are we talking about? Things people might see day to day.
Sure, things like setting minimum wages for workers, the big 5-year plans that aimed at planned economic development, fair price shops that provide essential goods like grains at subsidized rates, financial aid for unemployment, old age, sickness, even things like free legal aid for the poor.
Okay.
And a really significant one is MGNREGA, the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. It guarantees at least 100 days of wage employment per year to rural households. That's a major social safety net.
Got it. So practical measures, what about secular?
Secular state. This means India doesn't have a state religion. It doesn't promote one religion over others, nor does it interfere unduly with religious practice. It aims to treat all citizens equally, regardless of faith, and foster harmony, sometimes called positive secularism, equal respect for all faiths.
And are there specific constitutional rules that back this up to make sure it's not just a nice idea, but legally protected?
Definitely. The Constitution prevents the state from enforcing a particular religion. It bans discrimination based on religion in government jobs. It ensures one religious group can't dominate others. And significantly, minority groups have the right to establish their own educational institutions and receive state aid without discrimination. That's a key protection.
Right. Safeguarding diversity. Okay, next. Democratic.
Democratic state. The classic definition. Government of the people, by the people, for the people. Given India's size, its democracy is just mind-boggling in scale. People choose their leaders through regular elections. And the key mechanism is universal adult franchise. Every adult citizen gets the vote. No ifs, ands, or buts based on caste, creed, sex, etc.
And beyond just voting, what else underpins this democracy? What makes it vibrant?
Well, there are the guaranteed liberties we mentioned, freedom of speech, religion, assembly. The media, press, radio, TV has considerable freedom from state control, which is vital for accountability.
The fourth estate.
Exactly. And a really crucial element is the independent judiciary. It acts as the guardian of the Constitution and fundamental rights. Our sources also make a point about education, emphasizing that educating the public is vital because without education, democracy has no meaning. Informed citizens are key.
Makes sense. And the last one, Republican.
Republican state. This simply means the head of state is elected, not hereditary. India has a president, not a king or queen. It's a fundamental break from the monarchical system of British rule, grounding power in the people.
Right. And the president serves a fixed term, 5 years,
Sure.
and is elected indirectly, but elected by representatives of the people, the MPs, and state legislators. So it keeps that connection to the democratic process. Okay, so we've mapped out the nature of the state. Let's turn to how the Constitution directly empowers citizens. The fundamental rights, these sound crucial. How do they function as a shield, and what's the deal with their enforceability?
They are absolutely crucial, seen as essential for, well, human dignity and development. And the big thing is they are justiciable, meaning if your fundamental right is violated, you can go directly to the high courts or even the Supreme Court to seek remedy.
So they have real teeth.
Real teeth. The sources list 6 main categories. Right to equality, right to freedom, which includes the right to education now, right against exploitation, right to freedom of religion, cultural and educational rights, and the right to constitutional remedies, which is basically the right to go to court to enforce the other rights.
Okay.
And critically, the Constitution says no government can just take these rights away. The judiciary is designated as their protector, their custodian.
So rights the government can't take away, but then there are also the directive principles of state policy. What are those about?
The directive principles, these are slightly different. They're guidelines, principles aimed at creating a just social order, social, economic, political justice. The ultimate goal is establishing a welfare state. They're like the long-term aspirational goals for the government.
A welfare state. Sounds important. But the sources say these principles are not enforceable or justiciable in court. So what does that actually mean? How do they work alongside the enforceable fundamental rights?
That's the key distinction. You can't sue the government for not implementing a directive principle perfectly, unlike a fundamental right. However, they're not just suggestions. The Constitution explicitly states they are fundamental in the governance of the country, and it's the duty of the state to apply them when making laws.
So a moral or political obligation.
Exactly. They guide policy. Think of it like this. Fundamental rights are largely about what the state cannot do to you, negative obligations, protecting individual liberty. Directive principles are about what the state should strive to do, positive obligations, promoting collective well-being and equity. There's often a creative tension between them, played out in politics and courtrooms.
Right, that makes sense. Wow.
Yeah.
This deep dive, it really shows the sheer complexity, the layers within the Indian Constitution, from its history, its core values, to the structure of the state itself. It's a lot.
It really is. An immense document, born from immense challenges, but also immense foresight from the people who framed it. They were really trying to chart a path for a very complex, newly independent nation.
And as we wrap up, something that really strikes me, thinking about what you said earlier, it's the lengthiest constitution of the world. And it was built for this incredibly diverse country, so many communities, regions, languages, faiths. Just makes you wonder.
Yeah, it raises a fascinating question, doesn't it? Imagine the sheer difficulty, the delicate balancing act the framers faced, trying to consider the interests and aspirations of all those different groups to weave them into one cohesive legal framework. What does that effort tell us about the power and maybe the fragility of building a nation's foundation from scratch, especially one designed to unite such diversity?
A huge undertaking, and definitely something worth thinking about, the human vision and sheer hard work behind India's blueprint for democracy.